Hello and welcome to Traveling Lighter. This week we have Marius Stoian, a non-duality speaker based in Romania, joining us. Marius spends half his time in Tiruvannamalai in the winter and half his time in the mountains of Romania, guiding retreats, silent retreats, mostly nowadays. And I'm very grateful for him, to him for joining us. Welcome, Marius.
Thank you for the invitation.
I guess the first thing I'm curious about, Marius, is how you balance these two parts of your life. You know, in the foothills or the mountains. You know, living half the time uh, at the base of Arunchala and the rest of the time in the mountains of Romania.
Very good question. Mm, um, on many levels, it's actually a very good balance for me. Um, because India represents something for my soul, and also the mountains and the nature in Romania, um, which are still wild and not so much controlled by the government, um, represent another part of myself. And I guess that's the way I'm kind of finding a balance between these two. Because in India there is a lot of social interaction, satsang, a lot of people. Mm, It's crowded, it's noisy, chaos. But here I come back in Romania and there is nature and there are bears and deers and mostly by myself in a garden, working with the trees and not not much talking with the neighbors are very far. And I guess each of us we try to find a balance in our life. That's my way to balance these two aspects of ultimately my inner being.
Mm. And I'm guessing, since you base yourself in Tiru, that your approach, if you can say it, is quite traditional Advaita. Um,
Uh, I have to say this is a very wrong guess.
oh,
I
good.
I, I, divo I divorced a long time ago from Advaita Vedanta, if I ever actually been Advaita Vedanta.
Mm.
It's a long story, and yeah, we can go there.
Yep, I'm happy to go there. I'd love to hear the story.
Shortly put it, actually, Tiruvannamalai made me kind of be disillusioned with Advaita Vedanta, and because the way things go there, like uh, people are starting to nowadays very much, especially since 2015, like 10 years ago, they started. Uh, I mean, at a collective level, it's a lot of I don't know, commercial. The Advaita Vedanta just became very, very much a commercial issue, and people making a business, like all that manifestation of the shadow, of the collective shadow. And yeah, I guess I never been traditionally Advaita Vedanta. In my satsang, mostly I try to put attention on the here and now, and in the interaction between me and the people. Um, just shortly, the reason why I I started to feel I don't know, something is wrong, at least with the approach at the collective level, is that most of people coming there and like looking for the absolute self and stabilizing the mind in the self and all that discourse. I feel, but it's just my opinion. I feel it's just the wrong approach, because behind this intention, which is a genuine intention, is the desire to be free of pain. and most of it, the desire to be free of emotional, psychological suffering. And I feel that the starting point is wrong because you cannot go there wanting this. You have to want that for that itself, not because it gives you um, any kind of, I don't know, alleviation of pain or anything like that.
Mm. So this seeking should be about seeking truth rather than seeking the alleviation of pain.
I very much feel so. And the problem is not that people is looking for the alleviation of pain, is that it's unconscious of and is masqueraded on the surface as I'm seeking for the self, for the absolute self. So don't point at any kind of my biases or like. And I felt it's very much very wrong this approach. I mean, if you are really looking for the truth for the self, then it should not be a problem when something or someone is pointing at some I can't even call them this. It's a spiritual bypass, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and
And
it's interesting you say that because many speakers that we've spoken to in these meetings talk about the pain going into the pain. That it's not. It's actually intensifies the pain very much so, to the point of kind of feeling you're going to die. So it would be a
yeah,
mistake
but
to think it's going to alleviate the pain.
exactly. But in the same time, I feel like chasing for this some kind of like, because self also is real, but it can be also some kind of fictitious abstract concept. And for many spiritual seekers, self is an abstract concept created in the mind, many times superimposed upon some real, genuine experiences. And the more the seeker has this experience, like really melting of the mind of the ego and going there, and then says, okay, this is it. Aha, this is the self. I need to stabilize myself. You need to remain forever there, and then it becomes like a chase, and I was there. I was there, and very much. It felt like a rat race, like one day you feel like you're catching it, the next day you feel like you lost it, and then you feel like you're going crazy. And for a while, I think this is good. We all have to go through that stage in our life. But I started to feel in Tiruvannamalai many times, like there was some feeling of heaviness around people that are doing this in late in their life.
Mm.
Like maybe it's okay to do that in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, but when you reach 70, 80, and you are still chasing some guru and sitting there and asking what is the self, and I felt like mm, I don't know. I felt very, very sad, and I had some of these people in my satsang, being with Papaji, being with Osho, and mm, I have to admit they kind of turned something into me. Something flipped inside me because of these experiences, because I felt like something is not quite right there. And then I remembered Krishnamurti, Jiddu Krishnamurti. In the last years of his life, he was very, I don't even know what to say, disappointed, or like he was telling some people in the first row, like, look, you are with me 40, 50 years and still didn't get it. Like after so many years, you still didn't get it.
Yes, and I
And
know those people.
okay.
Yes.
Uh, and yeah, it made me wanted to enter a process to really want to know what happened.
Mm.
And I started to study about 10 years ago. I started to study more the shadow of this spiritual Advaita Vedanta rather than the tradition itself, because I felt like it's also quite important.
Mm. Yeah, I went to Krishnamurti's school, Rockwood Park, just after he died, actually. Um, And after being there for a while, um, and having returned a few times, my children went there as well. I really sense this conceit. It's kind of like people who dance at the edge, and they get some reward from dancing at the edge without falling in.
Mhm.
Um, and it frustrated me when I was there, and it still frustrates me when I go back. There's some kind of it's awful to say superiority, but sense of superiority at having danced with danced with this, you know. Um, I guess I'm not a seeker myself. I was very young age, and I had lots of experiences, but they were just experiences. I guess my next question is, there's a saying, it's better to have loved and lost rather than to have loved at all. Is that the true? Would you say that's the same for glimpses, or is it better to live the life without any of those glimpses in total ignorance, or to have those glimpses and yet be, like waiting all this time for some penny to drop, but nothing coming in, and not mattering, not feeling it matters much. But I don't know if that's a question there.
It's a very good question. The answer that comes from me right now is that the best is to learn to let go. And I think as a spiritual teacher, even though I don't like the term, is the only thing that we can teach, even as a human being, is the only thing that we can teach to someone else, like to let go. In what capacity, in what measure we can actually let go and let go with grace. And even if we love, to let go of that also. And even if we are on the edge of spiritual enlightenment, to let go of that also. And I think many of us are failing in there, because once we grasp something, we grasp an experience, we want to hold it forever if it's possible. We want actually some form of permanence, and this permanence is hiding in a very in the most unlikely places. Like in Advaita Vedanta is the absolute self. Like you are nobody, you are nothing, but it's still a lot of knowing there. It's a lot of identity there, and it's a permanent identity. At least the mind assumes that.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, but that's a continuous lesson to let go, even if it's something beautiful, to let go, even if we love to be able to let go. In Sufi, there is a proverb saying something like the bird of the paradise holds on the hand that doesn't grasp. And I find it so nice and so beautiful, so poetic,
Mm.
because yeah, our duty as human beings is to learn not to grasp when we catch some bird belonging to paradise, right?
Mm.
Eh, the instinct, everything in us, in our flesh, in our blood, it's wanting to grasp that.
Mm.
How graceful is to being able to let go.
Mm. I was just working in Kiev, where there are sirens going off every evening, um, because they're being bombed, and I was being translated, and this course that I teach, Coming to Our Senses, in the second week, I talk about unclenching and breathing. So we go through the body and we unclench and breathe, but the translation was constantly relax, relax, and I could feel the tension. You're telling us to relax, and the bombs falling on us. You're not being sensitive. I say, I would never use that word relax. I say unclench and breathe. You know, and I think that word relax can really inspire the opposite, can't it? Sometimes. Um, Relax isn't the same as letting go, is it?
Depend on the circumstance, it can be.
Mm.
But yeah, in that context, it is a bit controversial.
Mm.
Uh, um, I used to hold retreats in Russia and Belarus, many times, many years in Belarus.
Mm.
And after the war started, after the revolution in Minsk in 2020, I was there actually on the streets, and when it happened, and I had retreats before and after, and people were coming completely crushed. Sometimes they were just on the floor, just so exhausted, emotionally exhausted, because they were chased, like they arrested and all that madness. And at some point, I felt like it was a little bit not right to tell people to relax, or to tell people to stay in meditation, or tell people to come to retreat, because it felt like, what, when there is time to fight, you have to fight. When there is time for peace, you have to stay in peace.
Mm.
And that's why I kind of stopped it. When the war in Ukraine started, I stopped going there, and I said, okay, we can meet somewhere else.
Mm.
I realized that it's our nature to fight or flight. The
Mm.
freezing, the staying and freezing is not natural. I mean, we can do that, and it's healthy for a short period of time, but not for years. It's not natural. Something in us either fights, either run. Just freezing for such a long time is not healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely the stress response that was in. I mean, I was working mostly with women, obviously not the men who were at war, but on the front line. But freeze was, yes, definitely the state many of them were in.
Mhm.
Mm. Yeah, and um, and I ended what we created was called a sensory labyrinth theater. That's what I do, and it was really hard work. There was a lot of resistance, but at the end, it all came together, and everything was perfect. And it was really, that's where I shared this feedback I got once to one of the performances. It was from this fellow, and it was one of the best feedback the best feedback I'd had actually in 30 years of doing this theatre. And he simply said, "You are blessed to share this information." And that moment I realized what the information was, that this is perfect. And it's very difficult to hear that when you're at war, but this is all perfect. And I would only say it in that circle with those women because they went through that process, and the labyrinth, and all the struggle, everything that came to make it was necessary for it to arrive where it was. Um, but yeah, it's very difficult to hear that in a state of war. But it's the only possible peace, to recognize that all of this is perfect.
When we reach there, yeah, if we truly reach there,
Mm.
which can be very challenging in this kind of situation,
Yeah,
to accept the aggression, and to accept the unacceptable. Yeah,
yeah,
basically,
yeah.
it's very challenging for them.
Mm. So I'm curious, what's changed for you now when you do satsang in Tiru? Are there still the old fogies like me coming along and expecting something? Or they just stay away now?
Not so much anymore. Uh, Maybe around 5 years, 8 years ago, I started to switch towards more like you can say psychological approach. We talk about subconscious. We are very present in the moment. Like when something is manifesting, like what exactly is the root of that thought or that emotion. Uh, Without, like in the beginning, like if I would have done this like 15 years ago in Tiru, probably it would have been really difficult because, like this Advaita thing, like, oh, it's all in the mind. But now many people started to see that, what, it's not so, it should not be such a uh, separation between the Advaita approach and psychotherapy. There are more and more, like, let's say, combined um, teachers that are combining these two, and I think it's a good sign. And I'm trying to do that. Like, it's not so much about the self and ever was, I think, but uh, I'm more interested in the subtle dynamics, in the how things operate. If we fall into a like into a deeper space where you start to see that what, it's all good, as you say, like it's all perfect.
Mm.
We don't have to like uh, show fireworks, and like it's just some experience that we have, and that's it. It's perfect.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
I guess what I'm doing now in Peru more and more is for people that are coming, which are not so many, uh, trying to turn them away from spiritual bypassing towards the real work. To put it very shortly, because yeah, spiritual bypassing. Don't get me wrong. I, I'm not actually. I'm not really judging it. I I come to see that it has a purpose. And the purpose is that if we cannot cope with some aspects of our inner workings, like emotions and thoughts and difficult trauma maybe in the past, there is a mechanism in place in our own being not to be in touch with it and to dissociate from it temporarily in order not to suffer so much. It's like, it's just beautiful if you see it, like, but this should not be forever.
Mm.
Like something is happening, you cannot cope with it, you dissociate, but then deep down you know that one day I need to come back and deal with that. Like I need to face that which I could not contain it. It was too much for my nervous system, for my whatever. And I feel like all of us, we know that we have some, like bills, like bills that are unpaid, and one day we need to come back there and to pay those bills in order to have finally peace. And I think that's the objective, if you want.
Mm.
And some people understand, especially people that are going in this circling in this environment of Advaita for years and getting frustrated and going to this teacher again, disappointed and so much. And then at some point they realize, what, maybe I should turn my, like my attention towards whatever I carry inside and deal with that once and for all.
Mm. It's interesting because you know I've heard this argument before where Tony Parsons says, "Don't talk to people. There are no people," and like Lisa Cairns eventually said, "No, I have to talk to people because they they need to be addressed. These psychological issues need to be addressed." And Ramana said to his pupils when they asked, "Can we teach?" and he said, "No, you're too compassionate," didn't he? He said that. So there's this kind of interesting thing when do you choose to talk to people and in risk feeding this belief that there is a person there. But I also see exactly what you're talking about is this drive from people who have this trauma to that non-duality is a perfect vehicle for disassociation, isn't it?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
Very much, because if I'm not the mind, I'm not the body, like, and I go into a space where I'm totally protected and I don't have to deal with my stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very great danger, especially if we do it for a long, long years, and then we are so disconnected with the original trauma, and that it's impossible to come back there.
Yeah.
we build like walls, like very thick walls, not to ever go back there. And paradoxical, and for me, it's like is really really interesting how it works. Like the very fact that we talk about acceptance and going towards the self, and it's actually in a very twisted way works in the opposite way. It's like, and that I, some point we need to develop some sensibility, some discernment to see the difference between the message and the what is being talked and what actually is the reality of our emotional landscape. Because it happened to me many times in these Advaita circles, people talking about very, very advanced stuff, like absolute self and that kind of realms and Nirvikalpa Samadhi and things like that. And but inside the reality, it's completely different. I mean, and it's such a it has to be reconciled. I think the only sane thing that we can do is to try to reconcile this to one way or another.
Mm.
Find some resolution, some middle ground. They should be together. They have to be together.
Mm. Yeah. I saw a speech by Naomi Klein just the other day, and she's talking about, because you've talked about the collective, I feel I can talk about it a bit in American, also, here in the West, there's this collective, there's this shared um, value system under Trump, which doesn't see a future in the world, doesn't see a future in democracy, doesn't, and would rather tear it down than keep this concept of civilization for what it's worth. And she talks about the fact that there isn't yet an opposition, a group of people who do believe in the future. Um, and there is a kind of connection with this disassociation in that, is that, well, the world is going to hell in a handcart, climate change. I'm just going to disassociate from it. Um, and that's
Well,
yeah.
even I realized that actually it's very much about our capacity to hold uh, strong emotions or strong energies, call it as you want. Like the nervous system, literally the nervous system, how much it can take, how much it can contain. Because if we cannot contain a particular amount of energy, unconsciously we will protect ourselves from it.
Yeah.
And we do this at the personal level, but we do this at the collective level. Like the stage of denying, for example, all these conspiracy theories, they are still, and they were very fertile ground in the spirituality, in the spiritual term, realm. Like a lot of my friends, they started to not only to take them, but also to spread them. And
Mm.
many times I ask myself, like, what is this? Why is this happening? And I realized that actually is the first stage, like denial. Like when something traumatic is happening, like when you see pictures from Bucha, where the dead people on the street, and like, and first thing that your mind is going, no, it's fake. It has to be in Photoshop, right? That's the first response is to trauma. It's just denial,
Mm.
and it happens really at the collective level right now.
Mm.
But it happens also in satsang. I can see it, for example, when people talk about their personal stories. I can see it at the personal level. Like when the first reaction when something strong is happening, and which I know deep down, I know I cannot hold it.
Mm.
It's just to say it didn't happen. It's not like that, Like,
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely the case for me that my nervous system couldn't cope with what was happening when I was 21. or when I was 8, you know. Um, and and my life has been about reconciling with that, really, and trying to find a way of exploring this with what capacity I have. But there's something else in that. There's a kind of apocalypse cult, a death wish cult, um, in the sense that, well, you know, I'd rather that everything come to an end rather than actually face this.
But it's the same program. It's like rather than feeling that pain, feeling that energy through my body,
Yeah.
I rather it's like in a suicide mind, suicidal mind. The person that wants to commit suicide is fantasizing about suicide because he thinks that after he does it, it will be free of pain. He doesn't want to do actually the suicide, but freedom from pain,
Mm.
which of course it's an illusion.
Mm.
And the same thing that we can do is just slowly with very small increments we can go back into the original trauma. And many times the way this happens is like when we talk about it, for example, what happened in the 20 years old, like when you were 8 years old, whatever happened there, like talking a little bit about it is like a regression. You regress into that stage at that age, and you again feel through your body the
Mm.
emotion that what happened there, and now you are looking at it with different eyes. You know, like you are an adult person, you have a lot of resources. You know, like you had a lot of exercises, meditations, and all that, and of course it's still moving you. You know, like you are not like mm, untouched by it, but slowly it's like a cold shower, you know, like when you get into the cold shower,
Mm.
in the first few seconds the first reaction is to get out from there as fast as possible, and then if you stay a few more seconds it's like, okay, it's painful, but I need to wash this and this and this, and then a few more seconds and they're like, yeah, it's okay, no problem. Many times I explain it like that, and um, yeah.
Mm. And when you do retreats in the mountains of near Brasov in Romania, um, I understand most of those are silent retreats as opposed to in Tiru.
Yeah, silent retreat. I I think all retreats should be silent because we take a break from the interaction. We also take a break from these little thingies, you know, like phones and internet and Facebook and Instagram and all that. Uh, yeah, it's bombarding us with a lot of stimuli.
Mm. Alice, did you have a question for Marius?
Not really. Thank you so much for everything that you said. I mean, I did have a few things come up, but they've all come and gone like this. As I was thinking, I must ask you about that. I mean, I've just come back from a yoga retreat, and for me, just that idea that the mind, body, spirit is all really connected. I just wondered what you think about yoga as a sort of spiritual practice.
Um, in my retreats, actually, they are organized by some people which they always include yoga and meditation. So there is silence, mm, but always there is this component of uh, asanas, you know, like yoga. Uh, and Yeah, like any practice, it depends very much how we relate to it. It can take us more closer to ourselves. Like when we sit in a posture and we are stretching and the muscles are in pain and you feel the tension and you want to get out from there, but you stay a few more seconds and you discover that, you know what, it's not so bad. And a few more seconds and you stretch some more. And it is the same in satsang, but in here. In the asanas is more physical, and it's interesting that in every retreat I go to this yoga sessions myself, and I like this mirroring because the yoga teacher I am the student and the yoga teacher does something with my body and stretches me and I'm sweating and yeah, I like it.
Yeah, there's so many different, and I think the Western sort of yoga is now so much about more about the body and not about the spirit and the mind. And I think, yeah, this the same on the retreat I was on. It was a little bit too much about the body and not how how I could then really focus my mind. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I have many things I could say, but thank you. It's the main one, your wisdom.
I think next month, I think it is, we have Jack O'Keefe, who's a non-duality speaker, but she's kind of taken upon herself to bring up this fact that non-duality teachers can also be acting out of patterns that are abusive. And I think it's precisely around what you're talking about, Marius, is that, they haven't cleared elements of their personality that can be harmful to other people. So, this aspect of emphasizing the spiritual and falling upon liberation or awakening does not expedite the need to address perhaps certain patterns of personality that in modern parlance are abusive. Would you say that's true?
Very much. Actually, what I notice in the satsang dynamic is that as a teacher, as in the role of teacher, let's put it that way, with every question and answer, there is basically two big options. Either you give the right answer, but which takes the power away from you and puts it into the student. Either you give maybe not so sincere answer, but keeps the power to you. And it's like less than a millisecond there.
Wow.
To decide which way to go. And I don't know. I noticed this since I started. It was a very. I mean, like, and this is what I like to talk with people in the satsang about, these subtle dynamics. More than for me, this it's almost boring. Like what is the self and like what is like after some years it becomes really like because I feel a lot of dynamics are happening underneath that question and answer about the big things, like for example, what I see there is the dynamic between the child and the father or the parent or the authority figure. And people many times they are regressing into the child identity, like and if me, I'm in the role of the teacher and I'm not bringing that to the light, to the consciousness. Like, look, you are regressing now in a child mode. Like, why are you doing that? In one way or another, to empower the child or the student. I think, yeah, that will be wrong from my side. And yeah, I have to lose the power. And I realize that if it's not real, then why keeping it? Looking at all these great teachers and all these great shadows, like they're casting very big shadows, I realize that sooner or later we lose that power, like our perceived power or perceived greatness. So we can just lose it before, like we don't have to become such a big gurus and then to generate some scandal and like why playing that game? Just lose the power in the moment, like by giving the power to the student in the moment. Give the answer that he might not like it, might not come the next day, but you know in your deep heart that is the right answer.
I mean, you can go to a kind of extreme in that. Like, is it David Cagey? He wrote Brilliant Perfect Stillness. Who he spent time with Ramesh Balsekar, but he just decided to become a carpenter and was quite critical of anybody who tries to teach this or makes money from it or makes a living from it, So that's the kind of extreme of it in a way. I mean, I struggle with that sometimes because I do inspired my non-duality and teaching this course which teaches mindfulness from it. I'm not making a lot of money out of it. I would like to make money out of it, but there is that kind of element of, well, I shouldn't be making any money out of this. Is that something you struggle with?
No, not really. But I will tell you in which sense. I created a life in which I don't need to earn money, and I don't want to earn money from whatever I teach, even though it's not non-duality. And I think this is the right attitude, because when I look at a teacher, that's the advice I give to anyone comes to my satsang. If you look at the teacher and see if he has had some success in the material life, because if he doesn't know how to do anything, like there is a very great chance that he does non-duality teaching because he has no other options, and that I will feel very uncomfortable to be a student of a teacher that I know that he cannot survive in a material world without like this. From my perspective, non-duality is just a phase, just a stage in our life, and most of us we passing by this stage at some point.
Well, I'm an artist, and I can't do anything else. So that's my same defense, but as an artist, not as a non-duality.
Don't say that. You can do art, but I tell you why I say this, because I saw so many teachers that they started to I don't know the word for this, compromise their speech, because in the back of their head they know that they might not be able to pay the rent if they say the truth. So rather they say something else. It's a very, very fine line there. And as much as they want to play, like this absolute self, there is nobody here and all that. There is always someone who needs to pay the rent and put some food on the table, and which is the very, very practical level of life. And that kind of reminds everyone that there is actually a body.
Yeah, you're not a breatharian yet. You're not surviving off the sun's rays.
Yeah. So I will judge it. Okay, you might say we don't need to judge, but when you look for the teacher, I'll judge a teacher by how much he or she could harmoniously integrate the self, like the absolute being, with the human part, like with this material life. How harmonious is that integration? And I think that's because looking only at the divine part of a human being, you see only the light, right? But I feel like if we have to have some kind of complete union with the teacher, like student teacher, in that complete union, the shadow also have to be acknowledged, recognized, and integrated. Otherwise, that union is false. It's just totally biased, or it's imaginary. I had many people in my satsang telling me, "Oh, Marius, now I see you. I feel like I'm one with you," and all this kind of thing. And many times, even though I was rude, and I said, "I don't feel this," and they got upset and like, but okay, it has to be mutual. If you really feel me, then you feel me that you also feel me that I'm not there with you. We are not yet there. You don't really see the whole being of me, and that's okay. I don't want that. But what I'm trying to point out is that our imagination, it's very, very it's like a jungle, and it can really trick us many times.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was a transference or whatever it's called, a transmission, is it? Received when I was about 22 from Sai Baba. It was like a Satchitananda, possibly. I think it was very, very profound, but there was this feeling with it that I would have to hand the reins of my being or my soul to him. It was a transaction, you know. And I don't know if that was a work of my imagination or not, or whether some drugs were put into the food, or I don't know. But it's been a fascinating. It's been a question for me, since not doesn't I'm not preoccupied with it, but I find it very interesting. This idea that somebody can become so powerful in some spiritual sense or occult sense, but that doesn't make them a good person necessarily. Or this is beyond good and bad. This is the non-duality kind of get out of jail free card. Or where this is beyond good and bad. Yeah. And that might be the defense of somebody who's awakened and yet still acting out patterns of harm.
But in the same time, as a seeker in front of Satya Sai Baba, if Satya Sai Baba will have come to you and negate that experience, you'll have hated him for that, because this experience tells me more about you rather than about Satya Sai Baba.
Well, I left pretty quickly and had some very strange experiences after that as well. Yeah. But I mean, in my mind, what I said was like Krishnamurti immunized me from this. So anyway, it was a battle of gurus going on in my mind at that time, or non-gurus, as Krishnamurti would be. So, before we end, Marius, is there any sounds awful after all of that? Is there any retreats you'd like to advertise?
No, Ivan. Actually, I'm so bad with this that year by year I always struggle. Actually, people that are working with me become frustrated because we struggle to gather the people for the retreat, and I guess this is because the lack of advertising and all of that, and I'm okay with that. As I said, I organize my life in a way that I don't need that. Of course, I'm very happy when I go there and share with people, and that retreat state is happening, and then everything seems in flow. But yeah, things are as they are, and I'm okay with it. If it's happening, if it's happening. If it's not, also it's good.
And where can we find that information, Marius? If I wanted to go on your retreat, how would I find it?
I have a website which is not working right now, but yeah, there is a Facebook page.
With your name, yeah?
No, not really. It's called silentretreat.ro. It's Romanian. The website should be silentretreat.ro, but it's not functional at this moment.
Okay. Well, I'll put a link into the Facebook page on this video, and I would recommend Romania to anybody. It's a beautiful country, and as well, and still, areas of wilderness there that are being lost everywhere else in Europe.
Yeah, that's actually, yeah. This should be the wild nature here is actually the best. To answer you the first question, I guess this is why I come back to Romania from India, because I miss this wild nature and the forest, and it's something very special for me.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time, Marius, and
Thank you.
I'll let you get back to your mountain retreat. And I hope to meet. I come to Romania quite often, so next time I'm near Brasov, I'll connect.
Let me know. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be lovely. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.